Welcome to the Big Mike Fun Podcast, where you'll learn about advanced wealth building strategies from real estate investing to creating massive ROI and secured retirement profits. So pour yourself a cup of coffee, grab a notepad, and lean in, because Big Mike has got the mic. Starting now.
Welcome to the Big Mike Fun Podcast. I'm the Big Mike Zlatnik, and today it is my pleasure and a privilege to welcome Nick Sicilian from the Sicilian Brothers. Hi, Nick.
Hey, how's it going, Mike? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on a podcast. And you hail from Dallas-Fort Worth area, and
Yep.
you're born in New York, and you're now in Texas. How did your life journey take you there?
My whole family started moving about 20 years ago. I have four brothers, hence the Sicilian Brothers. We're a big old Italian family. We started moving here about 25 years ago, and I just realized cost of living, everything, right? So I consider myself a converted Southerner, as I like to say.
That's a classic path. A lot of people move from New York to Florida or New York to Texas, and Texas has been a great destination for folks who want to have a lower cost of living, a little bit more business friendly environment, and so on.
It's sad because New York is where my heart is. Don't get me wrong. I try not to talk bad about it, right? It's the center of everything. But once you leave, then you kind of can look back and pierce that bubble and realize it's not worth it at the end of the day, what you're paying for. You can just grow, and for your family, right? Your family can grow elsewhere once you leave that bubble. And same thing, you're starting to see it nowadays, people leaving California, high taxed areas, and coming to lower tax brackets for growth.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I still live in New York, and in my heart, I'd probably be in Dallas-Fort Worth area.
What part of New York are you from?
I beg your pardon?
What part of New York are you in?
I'm in Brooklyn.
Okay. So we were born out on Long Island, Suffolk County. I went to school in Throgs Neck at SUNY Maritime right there. So I love it. I mean, again, there's no other city in the world like Manhattan. There's nothing as awesome as Manhattan. Maybe Japan, but nothing else like it in the world.
Yeah, I love New York City, but I don't love the current environment and the politics.
Right? It's hard.
That's all I'm going to say at this point. But I'm here because of the family. So it's almost like you are where your family likes to be.
Exactly.
Or
I got lucky that they moved first. So
that's great. All right. So tell us a little more about you. You have obviously family. You have kids. You have any of that stuff in Dallas?
Yeah. So the whole reason why I got into real estate is for my kids. They're right behind me. Damon, Logan, 8 and 6. So I used to be an offshore engineer before this. I was working the 9 to 5 in a sense, right? I used to be a merchant marine offshore engineer, and I was spending up to 10 months of the year away from them, and it was getting too hard. So I transitioned. I got out of that whole rat race world in a sense, and I got into real estate full time with my brother. So
that's awesome. Just enlighten me a little bit. What does an offshore engineer do? You're on a ship?
So I went to SUNY Maritime, which is an engineering school in the Bronx. There's 5 of them in the country, different SUNY schools. Different maritime academies. I got my general engineering license out of there, general engineering degree, and then I had a Coast Guard license. Offshore, it would be, I would say, facilities engineer, right? I'm in charge of the power plant. I'm in charge of everything on it. Anything that's mechanical or machine driven, any transfers, loading of fuel, all those things, right? I was in charge of everything.
Is it on a ship, on an oil rig, or any of those?
So I started out on ships. I was on container ships and tankers originally, overseas, and then I transferred. I segued into the oil field, into the Gulf of Mexico, and then I was in the Gulf of Mexico for about 8 years on drill ships.
Very interesting. I appreciate that education. So now I know a little bit about that. So thank you. Now let's talk about real estate. So you're in Dallas-Fort Worth area. You do residential real estate mostly. Do you do any commercial, or is it mostly residential?
We stay out of commercial just because our niche is our whole operation is very finely tuned for single family, direct to seller. We're doing direct to seller marketing and everything. So we stay in our space. Single family, 2 to 4 doors max. We also do mobile homes and land, but I don't do anything for commercial marketing or multifamily.
I got you. So you buy, fix, and flip. You wholesale. You wholetail.
All
You
of it. We
all
do
of it.
all of it. We come in at a deal first approach, and then we'll do about 30% fix and flip, 30% assignment deals or wholesaling them, and then the remaining 40% would be creative financing, notes, all different things on that side. If we're keeping it, if we're buying it as subject to, and we're able to keep it as a rental, we're not doing many refinances right now just because rates went up, right? So trying to refinance something at 8% is a lot more difficult. So we'll do creative financing on those to try to keep them in our portfolio.
Let's dive into that. I actually love the idea. In the environment we're in, when the rates used to be low and they've risen, if you can buy a house with existing mortgage at the low interest rates, that's awesome. So how do you need to structure them? How do you negotiate them? Are sellers open to do that? If they have a mortgage locked at 4% rate, you can come in and buy subject to and basically take over their mortgage?
It's very difficult, right? Everybody wants to do it on every deal, but it comes down to the deal. All right. So for us, we want to make sure that we're making our profit back within 12 months. Right. So that means that a lot of times these properties, the ones that work for subject to, are ones that maybe they just bought them a year ago or 2 years ago, right? When those rates were low. Maybe they don't have a lot of equity in it. So there's not a lot of upside potential, but they got a couple months in arrears, right? They need to come up, pay in full, and then they just want to walk away. A lot of times these people, they all have different pain points in a sense, right? Whether or not they're facing foreclosure, somebody just died, maybe it's a probate case. A lot of times there's a lot of social and psychological things going on with their hoarders, or just they're letting the house fall apart, right? So everyone is different, but the ones that we do subject to, a lot of them are a lot of lower equity plays, right? They don't have a lot of options. They're just trying to walk away, and we're going to come in and solve those problems.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, you're going back to, I guess, the classic scenario where there's seller motivation, some level of motivation and inability, I guess, some kind of distress, personal distress. The property
It
might not be
has to
distressed,
be
but
some
the
form of
seller
motivation.
distressed.
It has to be. Otherwise, why are they going to sell to us, right? If
Yeah,
I
agreed.
can't solve your problems, there's no reason to, right? I'll actually tell them, we'll tell them, listen, you don't need to do this, right? Like we'll help them another way, but they don't have to sell their house all the time.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But the power is obviously tremendous if you can lock in a rate that's somehow 4.5%, and you can cash flow versus you get fresh mortgage at 7.5, 8. You can't cash flow. It's just a very tough play. So
Yep.
it makes sense. Um, where do you see opportunities today? Is this just working with folks that have some individual distress? That just specifically because the residential market has been very weird from the point of view that normally, in a classic sense, when rates go up, the price is supposed to come down, but the prices haven't because people have chosen not to move, just to keep the old existing mortgages, just because if they move, fresh mortgage is a lot more expensive. So the supply is very, very limited. So the market hasn't really softened unless you see something different. How's Dallas Fort Worth market been?
So I'm only gonna talk about Dallas because New York is drastically different, right? Like, but in DFW, we still have a housing shortage, right? Days on market, we're not up past, I don't think 60 days yet. The 5-year average is supposed to be around 90 days on market. We're still under that. So, you are right. People have lower mortgage rates and they don't want to sell, right? Because if they're going to sell a house at 400,000 with a 4% rate, well, if they go try to buy a 450 house at an 8%, they're going to be way underwater, right? Like their payments just went through the roof. So their affordability is down. You absolutely are right on that. But listen, there's still people that can't afford the houses that they're in currently. A lot of ours come from people that had houses that were paid off. A big one, and we preach about this all day long on social media, is insurance. People pay off their mortgages and then they say, "Hey, we don't need insurance anymore," and then something happens, hail comes through, floods their house, and they lose their entire house because they didn't have the ability to cover those damages or whatever, right? And a lot of times they just have to walk away from them. So there's opportunities everywhere. It's just being able to solve problems, right? I know I'm trying to find the right answer there. Sorry.
No, that's a great term. Solving ability to solve problems is a great skill, and ultimately, this is what you're trying to do. You're trying to help folks. You're not trying to take advantage of them, but you're trying to help them, and they have a real problem. And if you can solve their problem and at the same time create a good opportunity for you, that's how the world goes around. That's how real estate functions, and that makes a lot of sense. So what else are you doing? You have anything interesting going on? Just what are you guys, any new developments, any new projects and new opportunities? Just curious, what are you guys working on?
So we have the main business, right? That we buy, sell real estate. We're constantly doing that. We have about a staff of 9 currently. We just hired a new dispo girl to train her up. So that machine, in a sense, is working, which I love. So now the other machines that we're building out, right, we have a local paid mastermind that we're helping others, right? Education driven. And then we are currently building our first debt fund. We're going to start raising capital for a real estate debt fund, and then start lending and providing notes and creative financing strategies.
Very interesting. And I don't know if it's a good time or a bad time to start debt fund. It's one of those things. I have to think about it for a second. Obviously, it's all, it's a different experience. You might have enough folks who want to borrow from you, and if you have the right fund and a vehicle, it might be a good opportunity right now. In theory, it's a good time to be a lender if you can raise the capital, because you get to loan them at rates higher than in the past. So from that perspective, being a lender is a good place. Most of what we see out there is more conservative underwriting. So if you do a debt fund, most definitely need to tighten up. So what kind of, is it hard money loans? Is it primarily for fix and flips? Just a little more color on the debt fund.
No, so we're gonna do probably about a 30% hard money loan just for cash flow, right? The transactional, reoccurring business. But we are going to also do long-term 30-year notes for more stabilized. Those notes are going to be at a higher rate. Right now, we're selling those notes at 14%. So there's good returns on them.
Hold the horses. I think that's what they say in Texas, right? Hold the horse. I don't know if it's a Texas phrase or not. Definitely not hold the horses in New York. But
pump the brakes.
14%. On a 30-year fixed. And people pay that?
Yeah. They're coming in, putting 10% down. The price points on these houses are all usually sub 200s, right? So it's not on something that is 400 and 500 where that would be astronomical. Now, don't mind you, that is still a high rate, but they're not in it for 30 years, right? Their average turn time is 3 to 5 years before they're getting out of it. We don't have any prepay penalties, so we're not punishing people for getting out of the terms early, right? They're just getting in there, putting sweat equity in, putting money down, and then just having a house. And well, a lot of times they're business to business too, so they're going to be turning around and renting those out. So there's all different clients or avatars for those products.
Yeah, I understand. What can they rent a house like this for? So if it's a $200,000 house, they put 10% down, and you would lend them 90% loan to cost on a $200,000 purchase?
So the criteria for us is we make sure that the P&I is within lines of what market rents are, right? And that's pretty much a selling point. Listen.
But what is the market rent for a property like this? Just give me an example.
Let's say it's 1,700, somewhere around there, 1,500,
So 1,700 for $200,000 house, right?
Somewhere around there. It comes down to.
And how much would they put down?
10%. We usually 10 to 15% we're getting.
So they have $170,000 mortgage, right? At 14%, it's more than 1% a month. How are they going to be able to service the debt?
So that's the thing, though. All right. So we're going into it saying, hey, listen, you can either go get a rental and pay 100% interest, right? Or because our P&Is, and we're using very round numbers right now, a lot of times they are lesser. They're like around a 140 note deal, somewhere around there, because by the time they do bring in the cash, that's when we make sure that the P&I is within reason, right? If your P&I is 1,400 and my new loan amount is, let's say, 1,600, you're talking about the difference of 150 or something, but you're now owning it. Now you're going to be getting appreciation in it too. So you're
That's a
getting
negative cash flow. That's basically what you're saying is a small negative cash flow, and it's only appreciation play for these folks.
I'm not doing the rental, right? So it's not. I'm not saying this is. What
I know you're
renting
loaning the money to them.
They do a lot of different things. Sometimes they'll rent it out by room. A lot of times they do short-term rentals, stuff like that. So they're upping their cash flow. Right there.
Interesting. And I assume you don't do any owner occupied of that.
No, we're trying not now. Everything right now we're doing is business to business.
Because owner occupied, you got a problem. It's a Dodd-Frank, right? You have to underwrite for affordability, and it's like a mission impossible. I remember years ago, I know some people who used to do these loans, owner occ, for basically borrowers that are, typically again Dallas-Fort Worth area, Hispanic folks that they can't, they don't go to traditional bank, they're not comfortable. But I remember the rates were like 975, right? And this was when the interest rates were low. And now if you adjust the rates by 500 basis points, you're in the 14% range. But I don't know how you can qualify in the Dodd-Frank. That's the biggest problem. So I guess you're not doing that. So it's not even a discussion.
Yeah. No. We're not doing that. So.
But as an investment loan, it's basically you're doing a hard money loan for long term. The only thing that worries me, and again, this is my 2 cents, your 10% down, it's too low. It's what if they default? It's you wind up taking a house with
I just take the house back because we're so a lot of times we're doing the marketing on them, right? We're doing we're getting them pennies on the dollar, right? I'm not buying it at a 150 and then selling it at 150, right? If we're getting it into it at 80 and then we turn around and sell a note, right? There's the room. We make sure that there is the room that if we do need to kick it back, we're still safe.
So you're selling them as a seller financed option to these folks and your fund will finance these things.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Appreciate the clarification. Obviously, best of success to your fund. And it is a good market for high interest rates, relatively speaking, versus a few years ago. As long as you can underwrite conservatively and make sure that the borrowers don't default, because this has been the holy grail of underwriting, tighten up requirements.
We do a good job on that, on the upfront due diligence, right, of the borrower. Make sure that they have the finances and such like that, right? I'm not trying to put anything into something where I got to take it back, right? I never want to lend to own. Not our way. If I got plenty of properties we can just go buy and keep ourselves. So no, that's not what we're doing at all. So
yeah, I appreciate that, and it's a good diversification play for you, probably complementary product to what you're doing in your fix and flip and other space. So having a fund available. Just curious, what are you planning to pay investors? What do you think investors going to make in your fund? Have you thought about that?
We're going to start it out at 10%. I think 10% pref and then go from there. Probably do 10% and then 50-50 above that. I think for the first, we haven't put a number on it, but for the first bulk of capital raise, I'll waive all the management fees and just do a flat rate to cover expenses, right? Loan origination software, insurance, stuff like that. But trying to keep everything low and then high returns for the investors. So.
Yeah, makes sense. And I'll give you one piece of feedback. Again, no advice of any kind, just thought process. So I've seen these funds mostly during the days of low interest rates, but the interest rates are higher now, and natural tendency is to increase the pref. My 2 cents would be to keep the pref at somewhere around 8%, just as a thought process. Still offer them maybe instead of a 50-50, give them 60-40 or something like this.
Right.
Enhance it. Just don't make it too high, because if you make it too high and the rates retreat, you can lower the pref. This is one of the problems with the funds. Any change to the PPM can basically give investors an opportunity to leave or make them unhappy. So by lowering the pref, you're at least setting the bar reasonable. If you can't make the loan at the interest rates where you want to make.
We're currently we're gonna probably roll it out with 8% as the pref, but like I was saying earlier, I think I'm gonna do for the first capital raised, I'll bump it up to 10 and then try to waive out the the management fees and stuff like that, just to get it up and rolling. Like I said earlier, we have the other machines so well tuned and everything. This is our first one that we just want to get it up and rolling. Once it's up and rolling, then I'll be able to fine tune the machine.
Yeah, you got the right idea. So from the point of view that you can always waive the performance fees at 50-50 above the 8 is a performance fee. You can waive it. You can waive management fees. So from what I heard, you're trying to get investors at least 10%. Yep. And you can do that by waiving those fees if you are not naturally doing that. And for a young fund, it is a little bit of that. It's hard because you sometimes you raise the capital, you haven't put the money out. So you have a yield drag and you have to kind of match your capital raising with the opportunity so you don't sit in too much idle money for a young fund. We've done quite a bit of fund work ourselves, so we know the rodeo. So by the way, again, Dallas Fort Worth, love your rodeo at Stockton Yards at the Coliseum. So yeah. Next time I'm in Dallas, this is a place to go. It's so awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're ever in town, let me know. We'll definitely grab dinner.
Yeah, I appreciate that. How would folks get a hold of you? Appreciate you sharing your wisdom. What's the best way to reach out?
We're on all of the channels, right? All the social media brands. YouTube is our most popular one, the Sicilian Brothers on YouTube. We have 75,000 followers right now. We just broke that. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, all of them, Nick Sicilian. If you go to REIAF, that stands for Real Estate Investing as Fuck. That's just our confidence. REIAF.com, that's our mentorship site, and you'll find all of our information on there, all of our properties on there. If you're looking to get into wholesaling and you're looking for a good deal, we put all of our properties on there as well. So
appreciate your sharing. Thank you for your wisdom and good luck with the fund. I'm sure you're going to be successful, and yeah, and enjoy Dallas Fort Worth. Enjoy the little.
It's turned into fall right now, so it's breaking the 90s. It's coming down to like 89, so it's beautiful. I love this time of year. So
yeah, at least one thing I have to say, in New York, it's not as hot as in Texas. So at least it gets kind of cold in the winter. Well, I mean, the weather has been a little bit volatile in the last few years, but at least not as hot as Texas. Yeah. So thank you again for coming on a podcast. I appreciate you, and wishing
Thanks
you.
for having me, Mike.
The Sicilian Brothers on all social media. By the way, did you lock in a website like the SicilianBrothers.com?
Yep. So we have the SicilianBrothers.com also. That one funnels elsewhere into REIF. So we have plenty of different funnels. REIF
easier to remember. It's just easier to remember. If you can spell the SicilianBrothers.com, then instead of a short abbreviation, just my 2 cents.
Yeah, roger that, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Big Mike Fund Podcast. To receive your copy of Mike's How to Choose a Smart Real Estate Fund book, head to BigMikeFund.com or visit Amazon and type Mike's slot name. Keep listening and keep investing Big Mike style. See you on the next episode.